What do we learn from Chick-Fil-A Appreciation Day? What do those phenomenally long lines of friendly, polite, upbeat Christian conservatives tell us about where we are? This is the CitizenLink Report. I'm Stuart Shepard along with Tom Minnery, the Executive Director of CitizenLink. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Stuart.
Tom, I want to tell you what we saw last week as we went to Chick-fil-A, a couple of Chick-fil-A locations. I went both as a reporter and as a customer that evening. I waited in line for about an hour to get a sandwich and all. I saw American families. I saw moms and dads with their kids. They were smiling. They were chatting in line. I saw lines of cars that stretched for a block and a half, 2 blocks away from the restaurant, not counting the queue around the whole building. These were people I would want to hang out with. They were being patient. They were being kind to each other. I have friends on Facebook who posted pictures of the people they were in line with who were suddenly their best friends in the world. That's the kind of event it was. What I did not see is also just as interesting. I did not see police. I did not see people getting in the face of police who were not there. I did not see protest. I didn't see protest signs. I didn't see litter. The parking lots were perfectly clean. Here you have all these people wandering through this place all in a row all day long. The place is perfectly pristine, perfectly clean. Contrast that with our images that we saw for months and months that the mainstream media loved to talk about of Occupy Wall Street, where you had squalor in public parks and all these old tents and people who were unkempt and unclean and in the face of police officers and just shouting and yelling and megaphones of bullhorns. Not at all what we saw at Chick-fil-A last week. So to kind of sum it up, they exhibited love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Just saying.
Those are the Christian virtues that we want everybody to exhibit. What a world we're in here. When the left wants to flex its muscles, they clash with police, get arrested, occupy Wall Street, as you said. When conservatives want to do the same thing, flex its muscles, show its cause, it eats chicken sandwiches. I like that.
That's a good plan.
Positive thing
I like to call it the sweet tea party, is the way I look at it from last week.
Yeah, well, Stuart, seriously, what I think is happening is this is just one more manifestation of the Tea Party spirit that rose up 3 years ago this month, August 2009. People upset by large government, bank bailouts back then, wanting to express themselves, and they did that with those spontaneous appearances at town halls held by congressmen when they were home on the August break. This time, the chicken sandwich demonstration that Chick-fil-A gave people a rallying point that was positive, a way to show the enthusiasm that they still have for traditional culture as opposed to what we're seeing drift leftward.
I was really impressed. I talked to quite a few people, and this is all anecdotal. I went to 2 locations here, but we've heard similar stories from our friends around the country that they shared with us. The people I talked to just wanted to show their support for a company whose president stood up for marriage and biblical values. And they said, I will wait as long as it takes to do that, and I'm happy to do it. That's quite an attitude.
Well, it is, and it's a wonderful, spontaneous eruption of that attitude. And once again, when you give people a rallying point around which to express what they're feeling, they do turn out. And this was a wonderful opportunity to do that. So thanks to Mike Huckabee for declaring August 1st Chick-fil-A Day.
I also think that the other aspect of this that we need to talk about is people are waking up to what I like to call the big lie of gay activism. It's a line that we've heard in many different forms, but essentially it says we can change the laws that will have no impact on you whatsoever. We can change the definition of civil rights. It'll have no impact on you whatsoever. We can change the definition of marriage. What impact could that possibly have, Tom, on your marriage to your wife? Well, we're finally seeing that that is indeed a big lie. It's all designed to have an impact on everybody else, and by changing the law and what government enforces, it does exactly that. Here's one example. In Illinois, a civil rights complaint was filed against Chick-fil-A. And listen to this one section of this. Although I would like to be treated equally and with dignity and respect at Chick-fil-A restaurants, the company's widely published corporate philosophy, culture, and policies make clear to me that as an unmarried homosexual in a non-traditional family unit, I am inferior to married heterosexuals and therefore, and that therefore is important in this whole discussion, therefore unwelcome, objectionable, and unacceptable to Chick-fil-A. Let me translate that if I may. If you hold an opinion and express that opinion in a public forum that gay activists disagree with, that will be viewed the same, and they will run to the government and complain the same as if someone was told, you can't come in this restaurant, you can't sit at this table, I'm sorry, we won't serve you. So expressing an opinion has now been equated to saying you can't come in. And it's all because Dan Cathy, head of Chick-fil-A, said marriage is between one man and one woman, a point of view that most all Americans agree with.
Well, yeah, what we have here is a thought crime. If what you think oppresses me, then you have no right to think that and hold that thought. Now, rather than file a complaint in Illinois, that activists might better have just gone home and watched primetime TV. Nearly every program has positive depictions of gay life in America today. We mentioned just a while ago on this program that the White House now has on its homepage tribute to LGBT contributors and the LGBT contributions to the country. So it's hard anymore to make the case that one who is homosexual, living as that person lives, who voiced a complaint, is feeling somehow inferior. That just is a departure from reality.
It does highlight that the goal here is to have no objection whatsoever, no other point of view on this very controversial topic in our culture right now.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of hypocrisy here. Mayor Rahm Emanuel in Chicago said these are not Chicago values, that is to say Chick-fil-A's values, but what, just 3 months ago, President Obama from Chicago held the same view, or said he did, on what constitutes a marriage. Now, why were President Obama's values acceptable in Chicago before he made the switch, and why are not Chick-fil-A's values in Chicago suddenly off the table as hateful and bigoted right now? It makes no sense.
Here's another example of where this is headed and how it will have an impact both on people's lives, their family, their income. The popular petition site change.org, I counted 24 and I gave up at that point, but it's just filled with petitions ostensibly created by college students. You never know who starts these petitions on there, but we'll stipulate to that. Let's say they are college students who are asking their schools to kick Chick-fil-A out of the student unions, out of the student centers on campus. Because, the reason why, because people have been turned away at the door? No. Because people have been refused service? No. Because the tea wasn't good? No. Because they hold an opinion on marriage.
Well, college students are always looking for something to protest, and the Chick-fil-A booth at a student union is probably a good focal point, but they will have to contend with this, particularly in schools that receive state funding, state universities. You cannot engage in viewpoint discrimination. That may surprise somebody because they get one side of the ideology in class all the time. But when you're attacking someone's business just because of a viewpoint like this, that is something that's worthy to be challenged in court. And I believe that will be very vigorously challenged in court by a number of people representing the Chick-fil-A side of the argument.
Yeah, one of those organizations, the Alliance Defending Freedom, sent letters. They're not connected with Chick-fil-A in this particular thing, but they sent letters to at least 5 universities laying out the case you just made, that if you remove a company from campus based on a viewpoint, on an expressed viewpoint, you're definitely in violation of the First Amendment. You would think at a university they might study the First Amendment.
Well, you would think, but I don't know that they do anymore. And by the way, these would be state universities that take public funding, which leave themselves open to legal challenges, unlike private universities, which are free to do what they want. And frankly, we support private universities having the ability to do what they want, the freedom to do what they want, because a lot of Christian colleges obviously are private universities, private colleges, and they need the freedom to teach the gospel, to teach history, to teach the traditional views that have always been taught and are continuing in Christian education.
As we continue to look at the context of this, we can't ignore the fact it's an election year, and a lot of people are having a conversation, I think, around dinner tables and perhaps at Chick-fil-A. Do the long lines at a restaurant equal long lines in November? What do you think?
Well, it's an interesting connection. What it signifies is enthusiasm. There was a lot more enthusiasm on the pro-Chick-fil-A side of this dust-up than there was on the anti-side of this Chick-fil-A controversy. We read about kiss-ins that were scheduled to take place at Chick-fil-A's, and most of them were a bust. They did not happen. And I think that we are close enough to the election that this kind of enthusiasm probably will evidence itself on Election Day. I'm sure of it.
All right. Anything else you'd like to share before I let you go?
No, I got to get back to lunch, and I'll go to Chick-fil-A today.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks to all of you who've been writing to us. We appreciate your comments, your questions, your insights. You may always write to us at mail@citizenlink.com. We do read every note that comes in, and we do appreciate your comments. We don't get to respond to all of them. We write back to as many as we can, but sometimes we just can't get to all of them. We encourage you to pray for the leadership at Chick-fil-A as they try to ride through this and try to maintain both a company based on biblical principles and figure out how to do that in the culture that we live in today. Pray for wisdom for them and clarity of mind. And remember, stand tall and be heard.